Thank you very much. Salam alaikum, everyone. And I want to thank the American Muslim Institution for inviting me here and also applaud your great work in the area of Muslims in the media. It's so vitally important to tell our story. Also, I have to say, I think you finally found a way for Muslims to do things on time. It's pre-taping, because usually any Muslim event I've been at, I'll be told like, you're going to go on at 8 p.m. inshallah. It's always inshallah time. Well, with this, it actually works better for everyone. You pre-tape, you do it on time. We're changing norms here. So today I'm really talking about how much the media landscape has changed in America for our community in the 20 years since 9/11. And quick headline of it all, it's been a remarkable development for the better. We have moved so much forward, but there is so much more work to be done. I mean, a lot of work, but we are now building the infrastructure where you can see, and you can say it optimistically, things look good both in news media and entertainment media. They're two different forms of media, both vitally important that we get involved in it. To remind people, in the short time after 9/11, when I look back, there were two types of news stories about Muslims. The bad one, we were described as militant, gunman, or terrorist. Then the occasional good one, where we were described as alleged militant, gunman, or terrorist. It was not a good time. And there were no voices from our community. At the time, I used to joke about, it could be worse. They could give hurricanes Muslim names. That won't help us. Turn on the news. Hurricane Mahmoud is coming. Run for your life. Mahmoud's a killer. But in the last 20 years, we've seen a change. We've seen it for the better. You see more Muslims involved as journalists, behind the scenes, while I interact with some of them, and in entertainment media as well. But let's take a look at the big picture here. Let's take a step back about why does this matter? So you might be like, well, okay, great. Someone's not going to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. They're going into the media. What does it matter? It's actually on some level a form of activism, but I also want to point out for people, it can be very lucrative. Like your child's not going to be in poverty by being in the media. And there's a sense like, oh, only being a doctor is stable, or being an engineer or a lawyer. No, for people in the media, it can be, the compensation is fine, and it can be really great if you get well known. So I want to put that out there first for parents and grandparents and anyone who's thinking about going into the field. But look at the big picture here, and to be serious about it all. Polls show, just a Pew poll came out about a month ago, right around time of 9/11. Do you know what percentage of Americans actually know a Muslim personally? You might be surprised by this. Less than 50%. According to the poll, 53% of Americans, 53% say they don't know a Muslim. So you're talking about 47% say they know a Muslim personally. So 53% of our fellow Americans don't know us personally. What's also interesting is that polls show that if you know a Muslim personally, you have a more positive view of our community and of our faith. It plays that role. Unless the Muslim you know is a jerk, they're generally going to be a human ambassador for our community, answer questions, be the counterbalance. Because to me, I believe chipping away at misconception, it's sort of like an iceberg. That's the analogy I use. And you chip away piece by piece by piece. So somebody knowing one Muslim is a start. On my radio show on Sirius XM, every single night, I open by saying, hi, I'm Dean Obeidallah, and I want to be your Muslim best friend forever, your MBFF, as I say it. And it's sort of tongue in cheek, but it's based on these studies that have been going on for years. This is not new. The Pew poll that came out a month and a half ago, for years it's tracked that. If you know a Muslim, you have a more positive view of us. So why not assign everybody a Muslim? That's my sort of like the Adopt a Highway program. Everyone gets a Muslim friend. Great. The only problem is there's only a few million of us. We can't do it that way. It is physically impossible. That's where the media comes in. The media is a way to reach people that we can't meet on our own. It's a way to show up in their living room, literally through the TV set, or through now the computer or social media. It's a way to tell our story in our own terms, which is so vitally important, and be, I would say, a force for good in pushing back against misconceptions and outright bigotry and lies. So not knowing us comes with a price. Not knowing a Muslim personally, and those views of people who don't know a Muslim, as you might imagine, are decidedly negative, comes with a price in two ways. One, politics. Politicians gin up hate of us. We saw in the 2016 campaign, even before that, 2012 campaign, I wrote about it, tracking it there, started with like Newt Gingrich and Herman Cain, And then flash forward 2016, we lived through that. It really began with Ben Carson saying he doesn't want a Muslim as president. Then Donald Trump took it to levels I never thought were possible or hope would ever happen in this country, with calling for a ban of Muslims and the idea of Islam hates us. And I'm not being partisan in any way by saying that, because those people are all Republicans. If a Democrat said any of those things, I can assure you I would write about it. I would call that person out. I would denounce them in the media. Protecting our community from hate is not partisan. If anyone on any side says anything about our community that's hateful and bigoted or simply ignorant, we've got to be there. We have to stand up, push back on the bigotry, or if it's truly ignorance, help them understand what they don't know about us. Because sometimes, even myself in the past, I would assume someone saying something comes from a place of hate, when often it came from a place of ignorance. They simply didn't know. So, when I mention Trump and Ben Carson, that's not partisan. I might be a partisan person, but not when it comes to this stuff. There's no partisanship whatsoever. So you've got, the one hand, you've got the words of politicians demonizing us, calling for banning Muslims from coming to this country. And what happens from there is that the words of a politician can inspire good, bad, or very ugly. And in 2016, we saw the very ugly. There were more hate crimes against the Muslim community in 2016 than in the year after 9/11. Let me repeat that. There were more hate crimes against Muslim Americans in 2016 than in the year after the worst terrorist attack on our soil in our lifetimes. And that was because of the words of politicians ginning up hate of our community. And conversely, and I wrote about this in the past, after the Boston Marathon bombing, there was almost no hate crimes against our community. And the reason was there were Muslims in the media and there were no politicians ginning up hate of who we are. So to tie a line through this, people don't know us. Politicians demonize us because we're an easy, small group. The media is the way to reach people. The media is the way to tell people our story. And there's also another heartbreaking event that's happened, and that people not knowing us and demonizing our community. And that is bullying of Muslim students. There was a study done by CARE in California before the pandemic, when people were still in school all the time. We found over 50% of Muslim American students in California reported being bullied for their faith. Over 50%, that's meaning 1 out of 2, it's their daily existence as a Muslim in their school being bullied. And here's the worst part. That study found that 20% of the incidents of bullying were happening by the teachers. The teachers, the people you go to for help, were the ones doing the bullying. They were the ones, and sometimes it came from a place that they thought they were being playful, telling a joke in front of the students. For example, like a Muslim student had a backpack, and, oh, is there a bomb in your backpack? And everyone laughs at the student. But we know that is corrosive. We know that is dangerous. So that's going on, and it's not over. Just this week in New Jersey, in Maplewood, New Jersey, a Muslim student, a young girl wearing a hijab, her teacher ripped her hijab off her head and said, "You have beautiful hair, you should let everyone see it." How do you not know in 2021 that the hijab, just like for the Sikh community, is essentially an article of faith for certain people? But this teacher thought it was acceptable. Outrageous. So the media. So let's break it down. We get involved in the media. We tell our story. We're a presence in people's homes. We become their friend. And there's 2 forms: entertainment and news media. Let's start with news media, because that's, people know news media. I think we've seen the greatest progress in that field. And, the work of this organization has been helpful. I watched the videos. I've seen the great people you had speak in the past years who are here, who are now leading people in the news media field. But 20 years ago, there was no Muslim American anchor that we knew of. Look at MSNBC right now. You've got Ali Velshi, Ayman Mohadeen, and Mehdi Hassan. I think the M in MSNBC stands for Muslim at this point. It's great. I write for MSNBC, and I get paid to write now an article a week for them. They are the most embracing network of any. They are truly, and Yasmin Vesuvian, I'm not sure of her faith. I never asked, but she's of Middle Eastern heritage. She's Iranian American. They really have a network that looks like America over there. You look at CNN, they have Fareed Zakaria. There is no Muslim American contributors on air that I know of. I actually write for them as well. I've been writing a column a week for years for them. And I'm one of the rare people who write once a week for MS and once for CNN. But CNN needs more people on air from our community. And then you have Fox News. They're Fox News. There's nothing you can do. But here's the thing for the Muslim community, like the American Muslim Institution and other groups, is meeting with the executives of these networks. I talk to friends in the Black community, and I learn a lot from them. Their effective activism is getting together, and they met with executives at networks and said, you don't have people from our community in front of the camera or behind the camera or in the corporate offices, which are so important. The corporate offices are overlooked, and we don't talk about that. We talk about people on air all the time. People behind the scenes have the power. And I can tell you this, good news, I can give you more. There are now more Muslim journalists. NPR, the White House correspondents of Muslim American women. You've got Huffington Post, Slate, you name it, they're everywhere. And they're all coming up. They're young, they're younger than me. And they're coming up. They are going to be stars in the world of the media. There's also not many, but now more than I've seen before, of Muslim Americans behind the scenes as producers, as bookers. That's the secret power in news media. You have to understand, it's not Ali Velshi trying to get me on air, and he actually does. He's a great guy. But it's the booker behind the scenes who pitches you at pitch meetings about, hey, we have a topic. Let's have this person on, this man or woman on to talk about it. It's the producer level. It's the booker level. That is where the real power is. And then above that, it's like vice presidents of certain positions. And I'll give you an example of how a person on a smaller level in a TV network had a huge impact on what was on the screen. And in 2011, I made a comedy documentary. I co-directed it with my friend Dean, called The Muslims Are Coming. It's a comedy doc. We had 5 Muslim American comedians. We went to the deep South, to Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee. We did free comedy shows. 3 of us made it back. We're going to miss those other 2. No, we all made it back. But the point was, we did free shows to go out there and talk to people and meet them and answer their questions. And it's still available. It was on Netflix for a while. It's still available on Apple and stuff like that for a couple of bucks. That's not the point. I'm not trying to sell you on watching The Muslims Are Coming. It's that we were trying to get media coverage, and there was a young guy at the time who was very low level at NBC. He was like one step above production assistant. And a friend of mine put me in touch with him. He was Muslim American. And I told him about what we were doing. He goes, this sounds great. I'm going to pitch it up the ladder and see what happens. And because of him, it ended up on national TV on NBC with Brian Williams. At the time, he had a show, like a magazine show, Rock Center. And Harry Smith, the famous journalist, came down when we were filming, because we were in the South. They actually flew him down there. And that person is Sharif Majmoul. And you guys know him at the time. And now he's a producer. He was like a low-level guy. But my point is, even in the smallest positions behind the cameras, we can have an impact on the content. And that's what our goal is. It is the content to change so that it's fair, that it represents us, that we can tell our own story, which is so vitally important. We have to tell our own stories. It cannot be, even well-intentioned other people telling it, nice, I like it. We need to tell our own story. We're doing that more and more. So you've got that going on in the news. Let's talk about entertainment media. Again, if you have a child who wants to be a comedian or an actor or a writer, or a screenwriter or a director, don't freak out. There are opportunities. The industry now is more embracing than it's ever been. 20 years ago when I was starting, it was not that embracing. I don't think it was discriminatory. They didn't care about us. They demonized us. And I'll give you an example, because we talk about 9/11 to today. The demonization in the entertainment media world of Muslims started way before 9/11. There's a great book by a man named Dr. Jack Shaheen. It's called Real Bad Arabs, R-E-E-L, like movie Real Bad Arabs. And if you read the book, while Arabs are in the title, it's because Hollywood uses Arab and Muslim interchangeably. From the mid-70s to literally right before 9/11, the book came out. In that time, there were over 300 films which showed Muslims in a negative light, as terrorists, as sinister businessmen, as the sheik who's abusive to women, and women as belly dancers. That was it. But all these negative images, it was 10 a year for 30 years. Hollywood had invested, they had their reason, it was just about profit, I assume, to demonize us. And post 9/11, entertainment media got a little more responsible. You probably saw it like on Homeland. They would have, the one good Muslim, and and then about 100 bad Muslims. Before, they didn't have any good Muslims. So they had one good Muslim who usually would get killed by the bad Muslims. But at least you had this one Muslim working with the authorities, doing a good job. Things have changed from even that. That was, and I remember people applauding Hollywood. Look at that. They're showing a good Muslim. Yeah, and he gets killed by the bad ones. Now we're actually seeing way beyond that. You've got Hassan Minhaj, you have Rami Youssef. Asif Mandi's been my buddy, been around forever doing stuff. He's on the show Evil on CBS, and it's called Evil. He plays a Muslim guy, and guess what? He's not the evil person in the series. He's just a Muslim American guy who's like a tech guy. It has nothing to do with evil in the sense of Muslims. It's a supernatural show. You have more women than ever involved in different things, but for now, you see the leadership of men, and I hope that's going to open up doors for women as well. We need our entire community to be represented in entertainment media. And, Katie Couric years ago said, Muslims need their own Cosby show. Right now, we want nothing to do with Bill Cosby. But the point is, and she made a very valid point, the Cosby show was not just iconic, it actually had an impact on opinions. There's been studies about the Cosby show. It showed for many white families, it was the first Black family ever invited into their living room. And they were doing it through the television set. And for the Black community, they got to see a Black family. One was a doctor, one was a lawyer. They were successful, they were upper middle class. And what a breath of fresh air, inspiration it was from the community to see this, as opposed to being demonized the way we have by Hollywood for years. They have been as well. So having shows like Rami Youssef, and we need more. There are more shows in development right now to tell our story, vitally important. There's only certain people who will come to watch a news show. There's only that many people who will come to hear a lecture on Muslims. But entertainment media, if it's a funny show, people are watching it for the entertainment. And if they happen to learn, my goal is always making people laugh while making them smarter. You really got some good stuff going on there. So that's why entertainment media is so important. I have a dream, like the new James Bond movie just opened. My dream, a Muslim James Bond. Instead of coming out and saying Bond, James Bond, he comes out, he goes, Abdullah, Abdullah, Abdullah. It could happen, inshallah, when we'll have a Muslim James Bond. Not me, it might be maybe Hassan Minhaj, he's pretty cool. So he might be the Muslim James Bond. We'll see how that works out. But all kidding aside, entertainment media plays a huge, underappreciated role in defining a community for the bad or for the good. And now we're on the other side of the good. We are finally getting to the point where we're telling our story. There are more opportunities, and partly there are more opportunities in entertainment media because there's more. It's not just a handful of networks. It's not just a handful of cable networks now. Streaming platforms, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, you name it, they're out there. There's opportunities. And again, it can be very lucrative. So you're not going into becoming poverty and a pauper just to help the community. And I say that to incentivize you to go get involved. I understand not everybody wants to be in the entertainment field. I understand everyone doesn't want to work in news media. But what I will ask all the doctors and lawyers and engineers out there is support people who do. Support organizations like the American Muslim Institution. Support any community members who are trying to make a difference in these fields. In the beginning, it can be very hard. And, with AMI, from what I saw on your website and the work you've done in the last few years, is putting people together, connecting them. That's the key, because there could be a young Muslim American living in anywhere. They live in North Dakota. They can live in Georgia. They don't know where to go, how to have a connection, who to be there. And I can tell you, I have not met any Muslim American in this business, either in news media or entertainment, who will not help someone else who wants to get involved. There's no magic wand. I can't hire you and give you a show, but I can put you in touch with people in different areas. All of us can. We want to do that. We understand this is more than a career. It is a sense of activism for our community. And then when you bring this all together in the bigger picture, this affects politics. This affects electing officials in a certain way, because again, it's combating hate, defining us who we are. And through this change in entertainment media, news media, we've seen an uptick in Muslim Americans being successful running for office. After 9/11, in the years after 9/11, there were no Muslims in Congress. That didn't happen until 2006 with Keith Ellison. Now we have three, the most ever. We have Keith Ellison as the Attorney General of Minnesota. the first Muslim American elected statewide. He will not be the last. There are many more who are going to be there. We have Muslims now elected to offices from school board to state legislatures across this country and still running for office as we speak, running for office. And next year in 2022, I imagine the midterms, you'll see a lot of Muslim Americans. It's all hand in hand. To me, it's the idea of telling our story through different ways. One is through news media, the other is through entertainment media, and the other is through public service, being elected official, helping people, showing you care about this country so much that you want to serve as a public servant and you want to help all people of all backgrounds. What better way there is to define us as Muslim Americans and showing what we're really about helping people in need, which to me is so much about our faith and what I really believe we're about in its essence. So that's where we are. We're in a place where the past was very dark. There were times in the years in the mid, like 10 years ago, that there were glimmers of light. Now it's a bright light. The sun is ahead of us. There are great days ahead for our community. And it's about supporting us, supporting organizations like AMI, supporting any other group that's trying to get Muslims connected into the media, into news media, entertainment media, and also politics. I have to add that, it's so vitally important. And grassroots activism is a lecture for another day, but again, that's also important. Building allies with other communities that need help. We are all in this together. As Martin Luther King talked about, that we share this common garment of destiny. And what affects one community indirectly affects another community the same way. We're sharing that together. So thank you for listening to me. I hope it's helpful. I'm sincerely available. People want to email me. I'll give the people here at AMI my email. They can email me with any questions or comments. We are in this together. The future is brighter. I could see a day where we're going to have Muslims having network TV shows. We can see them as more anchors on different networks, maybe in Fox News, and maybe as a Muslim president one day, inshallah. Inshallah, but I mean, inshallah, yes, not like inshallah, that's never going to happen. No, inshallah, it's going to happen. I'm not kidding. We were on that trajectory. We're together. So I'm proud to be here today. I'm proud to be a part of this, proud to work with AMI on this lecture today. Thanks very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dean, for those comments. They're quite optimistic, and I am very confident perhaps one day, very soon, we will have an American Muslim president like you're suggesting. And I also appreciate the fact that you're taking time from your schedule to also take a couple of questions. So we'll queue those up right now and transition into that immediately. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aisha Lee. I'm from Springfield, Virginia. So thank you for speaking to us today. Dean, I have a question for you that kind of relates to your industry and just in general. So post 9/11, like a lot of us Muslims and Arab communities, we've become like answerable to anything that someone who identifies as a Muslim does, so whether it's a crime or something bad that they've done. So as a person in media primarily, how do you deal with these generalizations where it's like, it somehow shifts to us that it's like, oh, if someone does something bad, we kind of have to justify saying, oh, we're not like this.
That's a great question. And for my own trajectory of life, pre 9/11, I was essentially a white guy. I'm of mixed heritage. My dad's Palestinian, my mom's Italian. And when I was white, one of the benefits of white privilege is never having to answer for the worst in your community. In fact, no one asks white people to answer for the worst in their community. In post 9/11 America, as I became a minority because society told me I had to answer for the worst, because people would say, what's up with Muslims? Why do you people do this stuff? Or what's up with Arabs? That I, over time, embraced this. And now I'm unapologetically a minority, and I identify as a minority. It's a great question. It's challenging, and it's for each person to decide. There were people, we had an internal debate in the community years ago. Should we be denouncing terrorism by some Muslim we've never met who's across the world? And you get on TV and they're like, do you denounce this? And then some would say, we have no choice. And others say, no, we have no connection. We're not going to talk about it. There's no easy answer. What I learned from making the documentary, The Muslims Are Coming, and traveling to the South, is talking to really nice people in the South of all different backgrounds who are non-Muslim. And the one thing they kept saying to us is, why don't we hear Muslims in the media denouncing the terrorists as much? And if you don't, we're going to think you agree with them. And that was a wake-up call for me. So after that, I began saying, look, this is not who we are. This is not who our faith is. It's not what it's about. Now, I think we're 10 years past that. You know, if someone's going to be, say, somehow you were responsible in any way for the bad acts of a fellow Muslim, they're being a bigot at this point, because we're so beyond 10 years ago. Because it generally comes from hateful people. If it comes from a place where someone is truly wanting to know why, those are the people we have to talk to. We have to answer the questions. If someone doesn't know a Muslim, knows nothing about our faith, and says, is it true that your faith tells you to do this or that bad thing? Those are the people we have to engage in a conversation. The bigots are the ones in the media that they make money off demonizing us. So it's for each person to decide. In the media, at this point, I tend not to say, obviously this person does not represent Islam. I'm hoping we're beyond that. But if a situation comes up where I feel compelled to, I will.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Dean. So I'm Nadine Mansour, currently calling from Chicago, but based in New York. So my question for you is, you talked earlier about the progress that Muslim Americans have made in news media, and you yourself have had your show on SiriusXM now for 7 years. I remember being like the inaugural assistant for it, and your show has gone from a weekend show to now, 5 days a week. So I want to know, on the flip side, what do you think, to what extent have the perceptions of Muslims by regular everyday Americans have changed throughout those 7 years? And maybe even you can comment on 20 years since 9/11. And I want you to particularly share with us, based off of the questions that you get in the Ask a Muslim segment on your show, where you like solicit questions from everyday people. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Nadine. It's good to see you. Nadine worked on the Dean Obeidallah show when it was on SiriusXM only on Saturday, and it went from 2 hours a week on Saturday to then it went 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, and now it's 3 hours a night, 5 nights a week on SiriusXM. Polling, I found it really interesting. The polling, like the Pew poll that came out, and I was stunned to see that still 53% of Americans don't know a Muslim. And if you see their view of us, the ones who don't know us, it's not all bad, but it's not very good. And sometimes I think we're beyond that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so many years from 9/11. Our community's been so involved. We're in the media now. We're in politics now. How could people have negative thoughts of us that aren't based in reality anymore? Like these misconceptions, they still harbor these misconceptions. Again, 53% of Americans, as of a poll a month ago, don't know a Muslim personally. So if all you see about us, if you only catch a negative news story here and there about us, and you're not watching Rami's show, or you don't know Hassan Minhaj's, and you don't care to watch MSNBC, they're still not hearing who we really are. They're not hearing what we're about. That's why we do need Muslim Americans in conservative media, on Fox News. We need Muslim Americans who run as Republicans as well, because they become the human ambassador for our community within a place that really needs some Muslim answering questions. I think things have changed. I don't think the anger towards Muslims is there as it was in a few years after 9/11. And then a few years after the 2016, 17, 18 campaign. To me, one of the highlights in showing that more people liked us than I knew was when Donald Trump as president signed what we call the Muslim ban, they call the travel ban, and people flocked to the airports across the country to stand up for us. And they knew it was bigoted and they knew it was hateful. And that was one of the most moving things I've ever seen in my life. I always remember that. So I think things are getting better, but I've got to be honest, I don't want to sugarcoat it. I think for older generations, their views have not changed. They're static. They don't know us well. They might not like us. Some might actually hate us. Keep in mind, when Trump called for a ban on all Muslims in 2015 during his campaign, 2/3 of GOP primary voters, 2/3 agreed with the total ban on Muslims coming to this country. I don't know if those views have changed, but I know the younger generation is changing because they're the ones growing up with us. They know who we are. So I am more hopeful and optimistic going future, but I don't want anyone to think like things are perfect or that there are people who don't hate us or that a politician won't use anti-Muslim bigotry in the future to score political points in certain parts of this country. It's still going to be effective for them. Just like anti-Black bigotry we're seeing now and white nationalism being mainstreamed. So it's not over. The fight continues, but we endure. We have to be resilient and keep battling.